Hi guys, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. Let's get straight into the pattern drafting of this beautiful gown. I'm gonna head to fold my fabric into four, and I'm cutting the down part of this gown first, okay? And the first thing I did was to just mark my starting line, and then for the zip allowance, I'm taking 1 inch, and I'm going to take that 1 inch all the way down and rule a straight line. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to take from my waist to my hip. Now, when you mark your starting line, this starting line serves as your waist line, okay? Now, from the waistline, you take from your waist to your hip, which is 9 inches. And this 9 inches is standard, okay? So I am taking 9 inches from my starting line, which is also my waistline. And I'm taking that all the way through my fabric, okay? And I'm going to rule a straight line across. Now, when I'm done with that, I'm going to mark the length of the skirt part. Now, how to get this is to take the full length of your gown, and then you want to subtract your half length from the full length of the gown. Now, the remaining number that you have is going to be for the length of the skirt part, okay? So you want to take the full length of your gown, subtract that from your half length. The remaining number that you have is going to be for the length of the skirt part, okay? That's what I just marked here, and I'm going to rule a straight line across. The next thing I'm going to do is to take my round measurements. On my waistline, I'm going to take my waist round, which is 28 divided by 4, 7. So I'm marking 7 right here. Right down on my hip, I'm going to mark my hip round, which is 36 divided by 4, 9. So I am marking 9 right there. Then on the length, okay, first of all, I'm going to connect from my waist to my hip, okay? Now, at the length of this dress, I'm going to be taking my waist round divided by 4, okay? Because I want this gown to be a pencil mouth gown. So on the length of your dress, you want to mark your waist round divided by 4. Exactly what you marked on your waist, you would mark it on the length of this dress, okay? So what I just marked is 7, which is what I marked on my waistline, okay? Next thing is to connect from your hip down to the length of your dress. Now, guys, next thing I'm going to do is to mark my seam allowance, which is 2 inches. And I'm marking that from my waistline all the way to the length of this dress, okay? Then I'm going to just connect with a line. Next, on the hem of my dress, I'm going to be taking my allowance for folding. I'm just going to use the rest of what I have there as my hemming allowance, okay? Now, we're actually done. Next thing I'm going to do is to just go ahead and cut this out. Now, guys, next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and notch right where the length of my dress is going to stop. This helps me when I'm cutting the lining so that my lining stops right there, and then the remaining fabric I have under is going to be for my folding allowance. Now, let's get straight into the front pattern drafting. The upper bodice front pattern drafting. I'm going to head through my starting line on top and across. Next thing I'm going to do is to take my neck round measurement, which is 3 by 3 inches, okay? Now, this style does not have a round neck style, but we are going to be marking that round neck just so it helps us to fully draft out our pattern, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is to take my shoulder round divided by 2. Now, my shoulder round is 14 divided by 2, 7. So I'm going to mark 7. And right from there, I'm going to come down by 1.5 as my shoulder slope. And then I'm going to connect from my neck round down to where I just marked for my shoulder slope. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to take my armhole, and how to get your armhole is to do your bust round divided by 6 plus 1.5. Okay, so I'm marking that all the way across, and when I'm done, I'm going to just connect that line, and this line is going to serve as my chest line. Okay. Now, to bring down my armhole line, I'm going to also take my shoulder, my across shoulder divided by 2 right on my chest line, just so that my armhole line is on a straight line while I'm bringing it down. Okay, that's just the reason why I take this on my chest line. And I'm going to bring down my armhole line down to the point where I just marked. This helps this line to be on a straight line. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is to come up by 3 inches from my chest line, just like so. And then right there, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. Then next, I'm going to connect from my shoulder slope to where I just marked 1/2 inch. Then next, on my chest line, I'm going to mark my bust round divided by 4, which is 9 inches. Then I'm going to connect from the midpoint of my armhole down to where I just marked my bust round divided by 4. This helps you to get your armhole curve perfectly. Next, I'm going to take my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10 inches. Then I'm going to take from my shoulder to my under bust, which is 14 inches. And next, I'm going to take from my shoulder to my waistline, which is 17 inches. That is my front waistline, okay? So you want to make sure that you always measure your shoulder to your waist for front and shoulder to your waist at the back. It is not always the same thing because of our bust, okay? Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my bust pan, which is 7 inches divided by 2, 3.5. I'm going to mark that from my bust line all the way down to my waistline. Next, I'm going to connect these dots with a straight line. Then I'm going to come down to my waistline. I'm going to go out by 0.5 inches from both sides of my bust pan. Then from my bust line, I'm going to come down by 0.5 inches as well. And then I'm going to connect these dots to form my basic dart. Now for my bustier, on my under bust, from that line, okay, from the dart line, I'm going to come out by 0.75 on both sides. From that dart line, please come out by 0.75 on both sides. And then the next thing you're going to do is from your bust line, where you came down by 0.5 for your basic dart, connect with a curve down to where you just came out by 0.75 on your under bust line. Okay, just look at what I'm doing and just follow what I'm doing, okay? So connect with a curve like so. The next thing you want to do is on your waistline, from your dart lines, come out by 0.5 on both sides, okay? From that your dart line, come out by 0.5 on both sides. And then the next thing you will do is to connect with a line or with a straight line from your under bust down to your waistline. Now, guys, the next thing you're going to do is to get the neckline of this bustier. Okay, now what would guide you to get a good neckline if you don't want to show your cleavage, most especially, is to check what you have from your bust line to your under bust line. For me, what I have is 4 inches. Okay, so I'm going to mark 4 inches again from my bust line upwards. I'm going to take 4 inches upwards from my bust line. So check what you have from your bust line to your under bust line. Whatever you have there, mark the same thing from your bust line going upwards, just like so, just like you are seeing what I'm doing right now on the screen, okay? Now, if you don't care about your cleavage showing, you can just go up by 2 or 3 inches from your bust line as your standard neckline, okay? But if you want to cover as much cleavage as possible, just check what you have from your bust line to your under bust line and mark the same thing from your bust line all the way up. Now, this is going to be my neckline, all right? Now, the next thing you want to do is to come to your shoulder line, get the middle of your shoulder, and then connect with a straight line down to your bust line. So that's bust pan. Connect it right down to your bust pan, okay? Now, the next thing we're going to do is to do our upper bust tightening, all right? To avoid gaping when we put on our bustier, you don't want to have any gaping on your neckline. Now, from that middle line, I'm going to come out by 1 inch on both sides. I am doing 100% tightening. So I'm going out by one inch on both sides, all right? If you don't want it to be so tightened, you can just do 0.75 on both sides. If you are doing half inch on both sides, you want to make sure that you are not busty. Because if you are busty and you go out by half inch on both sides, it is going to surely gape. So 0.75 inches or 1 inch on both sides. Next thing you want to do is to connect with a slight curve from your neckline all the way to your bust pan, okay? Then check what you have on your side fronts from your neckline to that bust pan area. What I have is 5 inches. And when I checked on my center front, if I was to connect from my neckline to my bust pan, it won't be up to 5 inches. So what I did was just go ahead and adjust this so that it would be exactly 5 inches when I connect this, okay? And the reason I'm doing this is just so that when I join this on my sewing machine or when I join it on my fabric, I would not have one being longer than the other. All right. Now, when you are done with this, the next thing you want to do is to take your sweetheart neckline. Now, on my center front area, I came down by 1.5 inches. I'm going to connect with a curve back to my neckline. So try to get a very nice curve and connect these together. You can come down by 2 inches as well or 1.5 inches. Next thing I'm going to do is to replace my das on the neckline, okay, for the upper bust tightening. I'm going to replace it on my armhole area just so that I don't have any shortages on that my armhole area. So what I went ahead to do was to replace 1 inch on my armhole area, okay? And I'm redrawing my armhole line. And then on this, my new armhole line, I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches for my shoulder slope. And then I'm going to connect from my neckline all the way to this my new armhole line. Next I'm going to do is to take my armhole curve again. So I went up by 3 inches and from there I'm going in by 0.5 inch. And then when I'm done, I'm going to connect from my shoulder slope all the way to where I marked 0.5 inch and then just retrace my new armhole curve. All right, so this helps with having or with preventing any form of shortages on your armhole area when you are done with making these outfits. And next I'm going to do is to mark from, that's my neck round, all the way down to the middle point of the dart on my neckline. This is going to help me to form my yoke, okay? Then with a curve, just connect from this middle point all the way to your armhole to form your yoke. Now, guys, next thing we are going to do is to take our round measurements, okay? Now, on my chest line, I'm marking my bust round divided by 4, which is 9. And I'm going to replace the dart I have right there on my chest line. What I have there is around 0.75 inches, so I'm going to replace that on my chest line. Next, on my bust line, I just took my bust round divided by 4, and I'm going to have to also replace the little dart that I have there. Down on my under bust line, I'm marking my under bust round divided by 4, which is 7. I'm going to have to replace my dart, which is 2 inches. Next, on my waistline as well, I'm marking my waist round divided by 4, which is 7. And I'm going to have to replace my dart, which is 2 inches as well. Next thing you want to do is to connect with a line from your chest line all the way down to your waist line. So guys, you can see what we have here. The next thing that we are going to do is to just go ahead and label this center front, side front before we go ahead and cut this out, okay? So please watch carefully at the areas that I'm cutting just so that you don't make any mistakes when you are cutting this out, all right? Now, guys, next thing I'm going to do is to mark my side dart. So what I did was from my bust line, I came down by 2 inches and I'm connecting that all the way back to my bust pan, okay? So how to get to your side dart is to subtract what you have from your shoulder to your bust, shoulder to your waistline in front, from your shoulder to your waistline at the back. So my shoulder to my waistline in front is 17 inches, and my shoulder to my waistline at the back is 15 inches. So what I have for my side dart is 2 inches, all right? So when I'm done with closing that up, I'm going to go ahead and just retrace this out with my scissors, and this is what I have finally for my front pattern. Now guys, let's get into the pattern drafting of the back pattern. Now what I did first was to rule my starting line. And then next is to get our zip allowance, okay? Because this is going to be having a zip and I'm using just 1 inch for my zip allowance, okay? Now guys, next thing I'm going to do is to take my neck round, which is 3 inches. And then for the neck depth, I am marking 2 inches since this is the back, okay? And I'm going to connect from my neck round to my neck depth. And I'm going to extend that all the way to my zip allowance as well. Next thing I'm going to do now is to get my shoulder line. And I'm going to get my shoulder round, which is 14 divided by 2, 7. I'm going to mark 7 right here. And then from there, I'm going to take my shoulder slope for the back. For the back, I normally use 1 inch for my shoulder slope, so I just marked 1 inch. The next thing I'm going to do is to connect from my neck round down to where I just marked for my shoulder slope. Next thing I'm going to do is to take my armhole. Now, my armhole, to get your armhole is to do your bust round divided by 6 plus 1.5. I've done that, and this is going to also serve as your chest line. Next thing I'm doing is just to mark my shoulder round divided by 2 right on my chest line so that I can bring down my armhole line on a straight line. The next thing I'm doing here is just to get the middle of my armhole line, and right there I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to connect from my shoulder slope all the way to where I just marked 1/2 inch. Then on the chest line, I'm going to get my bust round divided by 4, which is 9. Now I'm going to connect with a curve from the midpoint of the armhole down to my chest line. That is how you get your armhole curve. The next thing I'm going to do is to mark from my shoulder to my waistline for the back, which is 15 inches. Now, guys, I'm just going to head to label this, my chest and my waist. The next thing that I'm doing here, which is very wrong, is to take my round measurements, okay? Because I've not yet taken out my darts. I forgot to take out my darts for some reason. So I'm still going to come back to taking out my darts. Now I'm doing my zip contour, which is to go in by 1/2 inch on my waistline and then just connect with a slant line all the way going upwards, okay? And then for my darts now, on my chest line, I'm going to mark the half of my nipple to nipple, which is 7. Half of it is 3.5. So I just mark that right on my chest line and on my waistline. Then I'm going to connect with a straight line from my chest line all the way to my waistline. And next thing I'm going to do is to come down by 1 inch from my chest line. Then on my waistline, I'm going to go out by 1/2 inch on both sides. And I'm going to connect with a line from my chest line all the way to my waistline to get my basic dart. The next thing I'm doing now is just to put my seam allowance. Then on my waistline, I'm adding back my darts that I just took plus my seam allowance, okay? Now, I just went ahead to also just take my seam allowance around my back pattern, okay? So I'm taking 1/2 inch on the waistline. This 1/2 inch, I'm going to use it to join to the skirt part of my dress, okay? When I'm done with that, I'm going to also go over to the neckline area and take 1/2 inch. Also on the shoulder line, I'm going to also take 1/2 inch seam allowance, and as well on my armhole area, I'm going to also take 1/2 inch seam allowance. So guys, we are done with the pack pattern. The next thing you want to do is just to go ahead and cut this out and then get straight into cutting on your fabric and cutting on your lining pieces, all right? So guys, I'm going to be dropping the sewing tutorial of this beautiful dress right after this tutorial, okay? Hope that you learned something today. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, comment down below any questions that you have. Thank you guys for watching. See you on the next one.